All right, hello everybody, and welcome to the VO Dojo's Ask the Sensei. This is our free monthly question and answer uh, session. I am Tish Hicks. I'm the Master Sensei of the VO Dojo here in Burbank, California. We are joined each month with Dan Lenard, who is our Techno Sensei, and then we invite one of our esteemed colleagues in the voiceover world, in different realms and with different areas of expertise and insight, to join us as a guest sensei. So this month, we are super excited to have Piotr Michael here. He he is doing some has always done pretty amazing work, and especially recently has been working on some fabulous projects. He's really well known in the animation world, in the video game world, and I think you are one of the go-to people in terms of voice matching, and I think that's a realm that you're really well known for. So lots of areas that Piotr just brings supreme excellence, and joy is fun too. Um, so we'll get started here with introductions, and then we will open up to your questions, since that's most of what we're here for. So, oh, I'm also going to put a little poll up here. Um, so if you have a second to just let us know where you're at on your voiceover journey, it allows us to gauge how to articulate questions, answers to questions. So we're kind of talking to you at the level that you're asking the question. Um, if you can see that. Oh, actually, do you need to do that, Joshua? Uh, can everyone see that or not?
Yeah, I see the poll, Tish. You got
Okay,
it.
great. Okay,
Yeah.
it popped up and then disappeared. Let me relaunch it there. Okay, continue. How's that? Can everyone see it? There we go. There we go. Houston, we have liftoff. All right. Awesome. Well, Dan, why don't you introduce yourself, and then Piotr will have you share about you. Oh, we can't hear you, Dan. Ironically.
There we go.
There we
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon if you're way back east.
go.
East, whatever. I'm Dan Lenard, the home voiceover studio master. What I do is I teach people who have no clue as to what it is they're supposed to be doing in their home voiceover studio, how to create one, how to set it up properly, and how to get your audio sounding the way it's supposed to sound like, as opposed to what you hear on the radio or television or all the other nonsense that you hear out there, and all the baloney that's on Facebook forums. There's a way to do it. It's simple. It's not complicated. It's not intimidating, but that's what I teach. And if you have any questions on anything with equipment, your home voiceover studio, just throw it in the chat, and or in the do we have a we don't have the Q&A thing.
Yeah, this is a meeting setup now, so we can hear people's voices.
So if you got a
we'll
question,
stick in the chat. Yeah.
ask it in there. Be happy as all heck to answer it for you.
Yeah, excellent. And Piotr, tell us about you.
Me? Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me, guys. I'm very excited to be here. I am a voice actor, comedian, impressionist. I started out in the industry doing silly impersonations of people, and always had an affinity for voices, and pursued on-camera comedy, sketch, and serious work, and found more work with voiceover, so focused a lot more on that, but still doing a little bit of everything. And I predominantly work in animation and promos and voice matching, which is the industry term for basically replacing celebrities or existing actors or voices that need to be matched to make a project finish and that sort of thing. So I do a lot of work on that. Yeah, I'm a little bit of everything, and I'm very excited to be here to answer anybody's questions. I've been doing this for professionally over oh my gosh, almost 15 years now. So
Mhm. Mhm.
happy to be a part of this dojo.
And can you tell a little bit about your background? I remember first meeting you at like a Don LaFontaine Lab event, and just you have a really fascinating like journey to your voiceover career with languages and background and stuff. Mm.
Yeah, my mother is from Poland, hence my first name Piotr, which means Peter in Polish, and my dad is American, and he comes from a theatrical dramatic background, and so I grew up with a lot of theater and visual arts, and just the sense to have a creative pursuit has always been in our family's background, and so I grew up very creative and always encouraged to do things and follow things that excited me. And so over time, I started focusing on animation as a visual career. I wanted to be an animator and illustrator, character designer, and I always loved film. And I found that I had a knack for matching voices, and um, I never thought much of it. I just thought it was something everybody else could do because I did it.
Mm.
And over time, I realized, no, um, this is a special little gift I have. And so I started focusing on playing around with it as a hobby. And over time, I realized that no, this could be something lucrative. This could be something that I can actually, you know, build a career out of. And I think YouTube came around 2005, maybe, and I started sharing some of my voices, got some attention from people in the industry. At the time, I was living actually in Hawaii. My parents are artists, and they said, why not live poor in paradise? So that's where we lived. And people from the industry said, hey, you should come out to Los Angeles. There's a lot of opportunities here for you. And so I switched from studying art to focusing more on theater. Studied at the University of Hawaii as well as the University of Essex in England. Then came over to Los Angeles and pursued stand-up comedy, sketch comedy. I studied at the Groundlings, worked my way up to the Sunday Company, which is just before the main company, so performing and writing sketches. And all the while working on my animation skills and voiceover. And yeah, so I've been known first and foremost as a comedian. So I came into the industry doing a lot of comedic voices, original characters, impersonations, of course. And over time, people realized, oh, okay, he can do serious things as well, and that opened up doors for other opportunities to work, the entire industry. And so I do a mix of everything now. I'm on the Howard Stern show every time they air, doing live impressions for Howard and interacting with everybody there. And then the rest of the day, I'm at home working on promos, narrations, movie trailers, voice matching, creating animated characters, video games, everything. So yeah, it's been a wild ride for me, and I love it because I really enjoy jumping back and forth and doing different things all the time. I don't like to sit down and do the one thing. So I'm very lucky and fortunate that way.
And you've been working on a fairly high profile new show. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, there's several, but yes. Let's see. I'm
One
trying
you
to.
can
You're
share.
talking.
I'm talking about the one with Michelle Obama.
Oh yes, of course. Waffles and Mochi, which is on
Mhm.
Netflix. Um, the it's a children's show. It's a blend. It's kind of like a new version of Sesame Street, where we have two puppet characters who travel the world and learn about healthy eating. And it was produced by Michelle Obama, and she actually stars in it in a fictionalized supermarket where she interacts with the puppet characters and children and kids and teaches them how to do that. And I'm the voice of Mochi, the second title character. Waffles is sort of like a yeti, and Mochi is a literal mochi ball, jumps around, and he doesn't speak any words. He just makes little noises, and I've been fortunate to do that, which has been a lot of fun to do.
That's excellent. And do you do the voices separately, or do you interact like as, are you doing the puppeteering as well?
We did it separately because they did it all. They had to travel the world,
Oh,
and
right.
so yeah. So it was a little more easier to come and do ADR after. So they had established puppeteers who did a fantastic job. I believe the company is Viva la Puppet, and they did great work on the puppetry. But the one puppeteer who did the voice of Mochi, I'm sorry, the voice of Waffles, is Michelle, and she Michelle Zamora, I believe, and she's the CEO of Viva la Puppet. She traveled the world with them and did a fantastic job, and really is the soul of Waffles. You can see her there, and Mochi is the troublemaker because he's always the one who's like, I don't know if I want to eat this food. I don't know if this is good. And I heard stories that little children around the world tried to steal the puppet because he was too cute.
Well, he's also, it sounds like he's the representative of someone who might have a younger perspective. So
Exactly. And kids relate to that, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yay. Well, let's open it up to questions. Let's see what questions are on people's minds. Anyone? Oh, do we have questions yet? I'll keep on asking questions if nobody has them. But yeah, this is a great time if you have questions for any of us about tech stuff, that anything anything that you're finding that you're having challenges with, that you'd like some insights. We can talk about anything at all. So let's start with Laura. Laura, why don't you, Joshua will, oh, I didn't introduce our team, you guys, I'm so sorry. In addition, Joshua is here as our dojo moderator today, and Diana Suko and Jeffrey Gilbank are here as well. So if you need anything, they're here in the background. So sorry, team. Yeah, so Joshua, why don't you bring Laura in and she can share her question.
Unmute.
Oh, we can't hear you though. Yeah. And are you in Australia, Laura? Are you here in the middle of the night? Wow, she's hardcore. Hardcore. Let's see. Maybe we'll go to the next questions, and we'll come back to Laura. So let's see. Janet and Ethan have a similar question. So we'll do a virtual arm wrestle. Janet, why don't you ask the question, and yeah.
Hi, Piotr. Nice to have you and have you here, meet you. I was just wondering, where do you find most of the voice matching work? Is it mostly animation, or what other places do you find it?
It's both, but surprisingly more on the cinema side. So on camera, voice matching for celebrities or other actors, or even historical figures. So a lot of it is usually last minute, because they're in the editing process, and so I will get a message saying, hey, we're looking for an audition for this character. Usually, rarely do I get the title of the project. They always, because they're working on big profile blockbusters. So
Wow.
yeah, it's usually cinema and that sort of thing. But there is, of course, voice matching for animation, which is a little less likely because animation is takes a lot more post-production, so they have to animate to the voice. So if they're doing ADR or voice matching to an existing character, it would be due to the fact that a character or actor is unable to perform that voice anymore,
Mm-hmm.
or they need a pickup line that they can't reach that person. So it's a little less frequent with animation, unless they're
Mm-hmm.
specifically looking for, hey, we want Vincent Price for a Scooby-Doo episode, or some other character that they want to pay homage to.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find, Piotr, that you are known as the go-to person for this, for specific voice matching, or are you just, if you
I
need
think
something?
I'm known for sure as one of the many who are able to voice match. There are several incredible performers out there who have the same ability to match, and it really is kind of like a it depends on the director, because sometimes I will voice match a character and I will consistently voice match that character for multiple projects, but then another director says,
Mm.
hey, let's audition for this thing, and I'll end up not getting that voice,
Mm.
even though I've done the voice several times and that sort of thing. So it really is kind of an audition process. You're not really called in to say, hey, bring him in. We don't need an audition, unless you've worked with that person before.
Okay. So
And,
it's
and
in
they
the
know.
moment who serves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. And Ethan, why don't we have you jump on with your follow-up question that's on that subject, and then we'll see if Laura's ready.
Janet, it
And-
looks like you have a follow-up question too.
I have another question. Just
Okay, well, super quick, because we want to get everybody's voices in, but yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to know, what was the specific knack that you have? What is the quality that you have that makes you so great at voice matching?
An obsession, I would say.
Obsession. Okay.
Because for me, a lot of people say, you must be a great singer because you can voice match people. I can't sing. I sing like
Okay.
Rex Harrison. I can talk sing. So it really is listening, repeating, and also being smart. You don't want to go and say, well, that person's voice is amazing, I'm going to work my butt off to try and sound like that person, when in reality, your vocal cords are completely different. So it's just years of experience of knowing who I can reach and how far along I need to manipulate my own performance to match a certain thing. But I am freakish because I am known to do a lot of elderly characters.
For example, I do say Ian McKellen for several projects, and I can't quite say what I've done before in the past, but I can say that I do Sir Ian McKellen. And
Right. Okay.
and so
awesome.
knowing that,
Sir Ian McKellen is an older personality, of course. And if there's other voices that are older and that sort of thing, and you can find other characters and people
who are in the same realm, then you can kind of, mix and match and say, hey, I think that sounds like this character. If I manipulate my voice a little bit more, I can get closer to that character. So it really is building a repertoire over time. It just takes lots of practice. But it's basically, I listen, I record myself mimicking what I'm listening to. Then I compare the two and I make adjustments, and I just go back and forth and back and forth. It's like sculpting with your voice.
That's a beautiful
Right.
one.
Thank you.
For me, that happens naturally. So I apologize if I'm not as technical, because I do know some people say, well, what do I put the placement of my tongue? What's the palate and the teeth? And
Right.
And I go, I have no idea. I'm very sorry. It's just because I became obsessed with it, and I would just work and manipulate my own face, much like Jim Carrey would practice in front of the mirror constantly, and it seems effortless when you see it as a finished product, but it is many hours of obsessing over things.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Well, Ethan, maybe that answered your question, but let's have you ask.
My question actually is, you mentioned how you became involved in people from the industry reached out to you. For this kind of work, would it be that you would create sort of like a demo and then find an agent for it? Or how would do they come directly to you because they know you? Or how did you establish yourself?
Well, of course, yeah. No, you have to make yourself known. So in this day and age with social media, there are the opportunities to get your talent recognized. So demo reels, I would say, now are, of course, very important. You need to have a well-established demo ready, because when the agent who has seen your silly little video or your wonderful news article or something that popped up and they say, hey, Ethan James Lynch is the greatest guy at this voice. Let's see what else he can do. Let's hear your demo. And if you don't have it set and ready to go, they may not have the patience to, move forward with you. So you have to have all guns, ready to go, so you can fire off and prove yourself. It's really it's preparing for that moment, because it will happen. It's just a matter of time. So you just need to make sure to have everything set. A solid character demo at least, and a commercial demo if that's what you're interested in, showing range of your natural voice and your characters.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing, Piotr, is that if you do have these skills and you showcase them on social media, then to back it up with, and I'm a professional working voiceover
Exactly.
actor who understands the flow of the process and how I can serve. So that's good.
Yes. Yes, and really, with social media now, there's so many platforms that are evolving and changing all the time. For me, back then, 2005, it was YouTube, and now it's TikTok, Instagram, could be something else tomorrow. So it really is just being ready and pumped and set to go. Don't wait. People aren't going to reach out to you. You have to make an effort. So if you aren't making those videos on social media and that sort of thing, and you're not promoting yourself in that way, there are still traditional ways where you can create a solid demo that wows people and it sounds amazing, not because of the quality of the explosions, but your performance. And you can reach out to agents because they still follow the traditional route. So I would definitely still promote that.
And Laura, do we have you to ask to follow up on the you were talking about how you use social media, but Laura was asking more specifically. Let's see if we can get your voice in the room. Otherwise, we'll just answer your question. Yeah, and also, guys, if you have tech questions about anything, Dan is here to answer your tech questions as well. Let's see if we can hear you, Laura. No, not quite. No, not quite, but you look really lovely. Shall I ask your question for you? Okay, awesome. So that's Laura. She's awesome. She's in Australia. But she asked, how often do you use social media platforms to find work versus agents, managers, rosters, etc.?
I would say in the beginning it was much more frequent. It was utilizing YouTube. I would basically use it as a platform to demonstrate my skills. But having said that, I work as a union actor. And so starting off, you are not going to be offered union roles. You may. There's the rare occurrence you can join a union right away, but you will be working on a lot of independent productions, and so you have to have a little common sense and business practice when it comes to that, because people can't take advantage of you, but you can also take advantage of those opportunities because you can learn on the job. You can do little tiny projects here and there. You can exchange too. What's really great about now is you have an artist that you like, an animator, somebody on Instagram. We say, wow, I would love to narrate your little video. I'll do it in exchange for you creating a logo for me or something like that. So you can barter and start off and just build your skill set as you get better and better. But I would caution people to be careful, because on social media, people will take advantage of the fact that because you're sharing your videos publicly for free, in a sense, they assume that you will do work for free in exchange from an email interaction. Hey, I saw that you made that incredible video that went viral. Here's a script for my animated film. Don't you want to be a part of it? It's going to be great. There's going to be 12 people that watch it. I swear to God, my mom, my sister, and my grandma will watch it 3 times each. So you have to be careful not to, take advantage or get, taken advantage of on social media. So you got to be careful. You got to use common sense when you do those things. Learn what you can from what people can offer you. But there are still opportunities on there. I recall, doing a lot of voiceover in the beginning, making an okay side income just doing little projects here and there. But learning on the job is probably the number one thing I received from all those projects, because they were all small and they came as little things here and there.
Cool. Well, let's see. We've got a bunch of process questions. So let's see how we can get. Yeah, let's see. So we've got Gina asking about how to develop question. Gina, why don't you ask your version of the question, and then Chris, you have sort of Chris Maroy, you have sort of a process and then processing question. So why don't we go to you next? So Gina, why don't you start off this question of playing, and then I think people have questions about how you apply that. Well, let's start with Gina. Here we go.
Hey, I was just kind of curious, like if you have suggestions of ways to practice playing with your voice and creating different voices, like if you do exercises or routines to make your voice more flexible.
As I mentioned before, I'm obsessive, so I'm constantly doing it. You can ask my girlfriend how many times she's been annoyed with me. And it's over 100 times a day. I constantly play with voices. It's my love and passion. So to me, it never seems like I'm exercising my voice. It's just part of who I am. But if I would break it down and say, yes, technically, I go throughout the day, and I just play with my voice. And because I play with my voice, it never seems like it's work. It's just part of who I am and what I do. But finding characters, I always go with what I love. If I hear a voice or I'm inspired by something, even we have lots of cats. Our cats make me do the craziest voices, and those voices lead to projects later on. For example, Mochi from Waffles and Mochi. He doesn't say any words, but that sound I was never able to create until I realized that's the cat voice I use to talk to my cats. Excuse me, I just don't feel like this stupid high-pitched voice that some people I know are, they can do that voice right away. I couldn't do that for the longest time. I was playing around just with cats, and then when the audition came around, I was sitting ready to go because I said, hey, I know how to get to that voice. What's cute and fun to me, it's me talking to my cats. Boom, put it onto a little kid show, and it worked. And so doing what you love is always an easier way to access those characters. Now, getting characters that are out of your spectrum, getting characters that are much more, difficult from your normal speaking voice, that takes time and practice, and that is where you do have to sit down and put in the work. But I would say, for me personally, I always started off with one voice, and then it would jump to another. So, for example, Austin Powers came around in the late 90s, running around as a kid, talking like Mike Myers. Yeah, baby, very shagadelic. It's a silly, stupid voice, right? And I was in the shower one day, and I said, what happens when I alter this voice? If I got rid of his British accent, he still has the teeth to, yeah, baby, very shagadelic. And then we get rid of that British accent, and he
he sounds like Mike Myers with big teeth, and if I make it a little bit higher, you got pretty much an impersonation of Steve Buscemi. And there you go. You make him a little more weaselly, make him a little more, apprehensive to do anything, and, he wants to complain about stuff, and boom, you got a new character.
And, that's, for me, my process is just manipulating existing voices and seeing what happens when I play with them. But exercising my voice is just really just playing with it all day.
Yeah, that's cool. And I love what you're talking about. At the dojo, we talk about the heart of each genre and explore the heart of animation bring it to life. And that's what you're just saying, like wherever you are, just bring things to life and then notice, right? And define from there. Yeah. Cool. And play fully. That's the other thing. Chris Maroy, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but why don't we get your process and processing questions combined and get some input from Dan too on the processing parts.
Sounds good. Hey guys.
Yeah,
Hello.
Hey Piotr. So my question was, when you have an original animation audition that's not voice matching and they don't specify how many different takes or passes they would like, how many do you usually send? And then follow up for Dan or you as well, how much post-processing do you typically do before submitting an audition?
So for me, I usually do 2 max.
Okay.
Usually, unless they specify more than 2, then you can go ahead and do that. Because you also have to think, in reality, if you're a casting director, you're sitting down and you get an audition and the audition is 7 minutes long and they don't like your first take and they're not that interested in your first take. They're like, well, I don't really want to see what else this guy has because obviously he's obsessive or she's obsessive. To the point that they don't know what they want to send. So it also, it's a bad thing to do because it shows you're not confident in your own performance. So you have to send in a take that says, hey, I like this. This is my choice. This is what I'm confident in doing. I'm sending this forward. So it's also important when you do 2 takes, you send in the first take.
Yeah.
You can either rearrange and put the one that you think is your strongest performance, Now, if I go quickly on the technical side, and Dan can clarify if there's anything. For me personally, what I do very little because especially now with home studios, the engineers would like to hear your studio quality. So if they say, hey, this guy's great audition, but my gosh, it sounds like he's recording through a tunnel. Let's bring him into the studio because he's that good. We'll do it. Or say, we know we don't have the budget anymore and the Zoom thing is great, but we can't record this guy because it doesn't sound that great. So you do want to show the quality of your studio, but if it's not as good a quality, you can, futz with it a little bit. You don't want to process your audio so that it eliminates your natural characteristics. You want to eliminate sound in between, and you can dampen the noise floor a little bit, but I wouldn't say to overdo it. And also you want to show that you're a human being.
Yeah.
Sometimes leaving breaths in there is great, because if you start off the audition and go, Chris Maroy, today on ha ba 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 ba, people go, oh, okay, he's a human being. But if you start off, hey, Chris Maroy, no sound. Aren't I great? Wow. Oh, yeah. Like, wow, he sounds like a promo. He's a finished product. It depends on the casting director and their preference, which you never know. So I would just say you could do a light processing. I wouldn't go too crazy because in the end, the engineers, that's their job. That's what they love to do. They love to clean you up. You don't want to sound dirty, but you don't want to sound polished, overly polished, I should say.
Thank you.
And I would follow up on that with saying that, less is more. Piotr's right on. The engineers don't want you futzing with it. They want you They want to hear the sound of you. The idea of your home voiceover studio is not to make you sound amazing and great. It's to make you sound like you, as you exist in the environment in which you're recording. So that's why, to me, 95% of the quality of your audio is far more important depending on the acoustics of the room you work in. Keeping exterior noise out and minimal reflection. You can see from Piotr's room, he's got producer's choice blankets behind him, and he's got some Orlex foam to his left or his right, depending on which way the camera is facing. And those are the things that you can hear. There's no reflection in his room. And the louder you talk, the more the acoustics of the room reveal themselves. So again, you want to be you. I'd also say that, we see a lot of specs these days that say no announcers. And I'm firmly in belief that it's because people are over processing their audio. Or they are over projecting. Voiceover is a one-to-one conversation generally, not an announcement to a crowd. So it's really important that you just talk the way you normally talk. And the quieter you are, the more you use your indoor voice to communicate one-to-one with one person, the less the acoustics of your space are going to come into play. So, and as far as the other things are concerned, like mouth clicks and breath removal, there are lots of different techniques for removing breaths. One of them is being in really good physical shape so that you can read an entire sentence or two without taking a breath. Be amazed at the stuff I hear. Hello, I'm the... It's fine. Don't worry about it. The better shape you're in, the more you can practice doing an entire sentence or two without taking a breath, without rushing it, the better and easier it is to edit on the back end. So that's also important. As far as mouth click, go ahead. Dick.
You go ahead. I'll finish. I'll tag along as far as mouth. Yeah.
Right, and with mouth noise, it's a matter of staying hydrated. It's a matter of not talking right into the microphone, which a lot of people do. Microphone technique is really, really important. And, we teach, keep it at eye level, 5 to 7 inches away. As you can see, Piotr and I don't use a pop screen because we can go Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers all day long. And, because we're talking underneath the mic and our copy is right here, it's easy. You have room to move your hands and all those other things. So it's important that you learn all of these different techniques, which of course takes time and effort and all those other things. But we do teach that here at the dojo, and I certainly do in my consultations. But when it comes to mouth noise and things along those lines, very important. Stay hydrated, stay relaxed. I tend to find that people are over projecting, they're over enunciating, and that also will create mouth clicks. I also use something called alcohol, which is a mucus solvent. I mix it 20-to-1 within a spray bottle with water, spray it in 5-6 times, swish it around, spit it out, mouth clicks are gone.
Yeah. And along those lines, in terms of well, two thoughts. One on the rawness of your physical sound. I like to say it's kind of like you want to show up. Your sound should have no makeup on it, because if you come to a session and you have Tempeh Baker makeup on, the engineer can't do anything with it. But if you come with your natural glowing complexion, we can do whatever we want. The other thing about if you're running out of breath, the dojo we talk about do you know what you're talking about? So oftentimes breath control is a matter of actually connecting to the material, because when we are talking about something, sharing it with somebody, we never run out of breath. We never, we're always calibrating to how far someone is in relationship to us. So sometimes breath control is a matter of, are you connected to what you're sharing?
And if I could say something silly, early on in my career, I was over processing things, and one session I booked, and I came into the session and the engineer goes, "Can you speak a little louder?" For this voice I was doing. "Can you speak a little louder?" He says, "On your audition, you were really loud. You're not speaking loud enough." The problem was I was to reach this voice, I had to speak at a certain volume, you know, to access a certain sound. And then I would overprocess it to make sure it was leveled and all this sounding, and got rid of all the noise clicks. And it sounded beautiful on my end when I sent it in. And when I went in for the live session, I was sweating bullets because I didn't sound like my audition. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to sound different from your audition. What you can do sometimes, if, for example, if you have an audition that requires, they're like, we're looking for a vintage sound from the 1940s, a classic guy, narrator, he's out there on the 1940s documentary. You can process your voice on the second take, or even the first take if you're confident enough, and you can let your agent know, or even talk to see what they say specifically, and you can use filters to create that effect, that finalized effect, but then also have the raw version available so that they know what you sound like with your original setup. That's just something I've come across through years of making many mistakes.
And then what also seems another moral of that story is you knew what your instrument could handle at that levels, but then if you had to pump it up and sustain that, that might be damaging or not sustainable, right?
Of course. And that's embarrassing. And they'll remember you more. I guarantee more engineers will remember the person who did a bad job than the person who did a good job, which is, sad for the people who do great jobs because, it takes a little more time. But if you go into a session, they go, oh my God, that Piotr, how do you say his name? God, he didn't know how to get rid of those mouth clicks. He kept drinking alcohol instead of alcohol. Something went wrong with his session. But I'll see him at the bar later today. So, yeah, you have to make sure that your audition matches your day of performance.
Yeah. Well, here's another tech question from Olivia. Olivia, you want to jump in? Thanks, Chris. Those were both great super questions, and good to have you here. Olivia, let's have you ask your question.
Hi. Thank you guys for being here. And you kind of started to touch on this in the last question. My question was just about a home studio setup, because I feel like there's a lot of different advice going around, and there's sometimes pressure to get like Studio Bricks recording thing and have the nicest mic and all that stuff. So Dan, I wanted to give your advice and what you thought a home studio should be able to provide and the kind of equipment standard that it should be up to and whatnot.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I never get asked this question.
Never, I'm sure.
Not once. This is totally fresh territory for me. Yeah, well, first you have to think about general philosophy of what it is you're trying to accomplish. There are three things you're trying to accomplish. Let me go through this really quick. Number one, the acoustics of the room you're recording in, keeping noise out, preventing vocal reflection. Not easy to do. The reflection part, not as hard as the sound, keeping the sound out, because, where you live in a house, there's people walking around, toilets flushing, neighbors with air conditioners, certainly gardeners with leaf blowers, all those things. And it comes down to a matter sometimes of finding the best isolation you can and a tremendous amount of patience. You can, spend, $6,000 to $8,000 on a soundproof booth, or you could wait until the guys doing the gardening stop using their leaf blower. It's, a balance thing there. Second is microphone technique, which we also discussed briefly. And that is, again, having the microphone, the diaphragm of the microphone, having it upside down, having the diaphragm of the microphone approximately at the height of your eyes or the bridge of your nose, talk underneath it. As you can hear, I sound like I'm in the same room with you, and a studio condenser mic's going to pick you up just fine. And that's the thing, you do need to have a studio condenser mic and not one under $150. There are some great microphones out there made by, the top companies, Audio-Technica and Shure, and Sennheiser makes, they're a little higher end. The Sennheiser 416 is very popular with people, but that's $1,000 mic. My philosophy is you don't get great equipment to get work, you work to get great equipment. and prove to people that you're really good. And as Piotr was mentioning before, if they're like, well, we really like the way that person interpreted that copy, they're going to bring you into the studio if they don't think your studio is up to par. And I've heard that from a number of producers who say that, well, wow, this guy's really good, or this lady's really good. Let's get her in here, and let's get her in the environment that we can provide for her. But if you can do it at home with the right environment, that's really helpful. The other thing is setting proper input levels, which nobody seems to understand. Back in radio days, when I was on the radio, we used to use one of these guys, a VU meter. By the way, VU stands for volume units. And what you want to be able to do is look at that meter that's in most software or on your digital interface. And that digital interface or meter is going to have a code of green, yellow, and red. You always want to be in the green. You always want to be in the yellow with an occasional flash into the red, even if you're talking very quietly, which means you need to adjust the gain on your interface, and don't buy an interface that's like $40. And don't buy a USB mic off Facebook. There are some really bad things out there that you do not want to use. You want to have a good studio condenser microphone over $150. I can list a whole bunch of them. And a good digital interface that's over $100. Focusrite makes the Focusrite Solo and the 2i2. And Steinberg makes a really good one. Do not buy an Apollo Twin. You got to realize that most of the equipment that we use in voiceover never was designed for doing voiceover. They're not sitting in boardrooms going, I think we need to make a voiceover microphone with our line of microphones. They don't do that. It's all designed for making music, and in the last couple of years, mostly for making podcasts, which is not the same as doing voiceover. So you've got to understand that we're just borrowing this technology, and there's a lot of equipment out there that a lot of audio geeks tend to talk about because they're audio geeks. Audio geeks don't hire voice talent. You want to use something that's simple. You hit record. Think of your computer as a cassette recorder. Play, stop, and that sort of thing, with a little extra ability to edit. But if you think beyond that, you're going to drive yourself insane.
Yeah, I think it's good to know the terminology so you can talk about it. You don't get freaked out, but really what is required is fairly simple. Here's a question that I have in terms of where tech and animation technique come in. But when you're working on a character, both in animation and video games, in the course of an audition, you want to capture the really intimate, and then also be set on fire by an alien shot with an arrow, etc. So how do you guys approach that in your process?
Yeah, you can take the go.
Oh, sure. Well, you have to be your own engineer, at least a little bit. Like Dan was mentioning, you have to monitor your levels, which is a very, very essential skill to have in voiceover at home, especially doing voiceover auditions. Because, yes, you will be asked many times for video games especially to do different volumes, because the length of material needed is extensive, and there are so many different situations in video games. So you have to monitor those levels, and yes, you will have to make sure that you aren't going crazy. So it really it takes practice. Before you get an audition, I would spend time just playing around with your voice and seeing how high you get, how low you get, and making sure that you get a moderately consistent output level. But to get that consistent output level, you do have to change the input volume that comes in, so that it depends on your voice and that sort of thing. So you have to play around. But if Dan wants to get more specific, he probably will, because I certainly can't.
Well, and again, it's a matter of microphone technique. You can play with your levels. Like, if I'm going to yell, I can just pot down my mic and it's going to not overmodulate. But I can also use the proximity with the microphone to, if I'm going to yell, I can yell back here, because we don't yell in people's ears. and you want to sound natural in that type of yelling. Or you can turn your head or something along those lines. Or one of my favorites, like, what are you girls doing down there? You know, dad upstairs sort of thing. You know, it's, remember, nobody sees how the sausage is made. They only hear it.
They only hear it. Yeah.
And it works better if your room is treated. The only thing I would say is if your room isn't treated and you do something like that, then it does create different effects, which will,
Right. And if your room's not treated,
Moment.
do it. So, you know, try to isolate yourself best you can and find the best acoustics, you know, and there are ways to do that, which of course we can show you, you know, and, you know, in instruction as we go along in the dojo. So, yeah, but those are some of the ways you can deal with that.
Yeah. I'm going to circle back to Nicholas. Nicholas had sort of a general question for you, Piotr, and then let's see what else we have. Nicholas V, why don't we ask your question? And if there's any last minute questions, it looks like we need to get the alcohol people.
Yeah, what's the kind of characters that you like playing the most in animations or voice matching, mostly, if I may ask?
Well, as I mentioned before, I have an affinity for older British people. I love British accents and that sort of thing. I just prefer those. I was raised on Turner Classic Movies. So, you know, Peter Lorre and that sort of thing is crazy. But I love Vincent Price. I did a lot of Vincent Price voice work early on in my YouTube days as a 13-year-old. So I've always loved those very campy, chewing the scenery type character actors. And so for me, the ones that have a lot more play are much more fun to do. Right now, when you do voice matching, a lot of it is of characters who have no, personality in their voice, at least. On screen, they look beautiful. They're great at lifting weights. But when you hear their voice, it's very difficult to voice match them because they have very little character. You know, you get somebody like Matthew McConaughey. He's a lot more fun to play with because he's got something to do with his voice, right? But you see someone like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and he's got blah, blah, blah. You know, it's a little harder to do because his voice is a little more vanilla, more bland. So for me, I enjoy the voices that have a little more texture, a little more character. It's just more fun for me to study. And in the end, that's really what it is. That's why I get good at certain voices, is because I'm passionate about that particular voice. But for me, old Hollywood, the 1940s, I love, and the British people, of course. I love watching, Sir David Attenborough and his wonderful explanations of how animals move back and forth along the prairie, and that sort of thing. Disneyland, I love all the voices there. Let's see, The Haunted Mansion. I'm trying to think of other things that that really get me excited. Jeff Goldblum has a very interesting voice. Yes, we love Jeff Goldblum. But that goes back to characters that specifically, they've got something interesting there, but you also have to focus on mannerisms, which take a lot more work, but a lot more fun to do. So sometimes when you're doing voices, turn off your camera, because if you watch yourself, you'll go cuckoo. A lot of the voices I do, I will have the craziest expressions, and you have to. You have to. That was one of the first biggest lessons I learned. You have to be willing to look absolutely ridiculous. And the only way you can do that is by not focusing on your outward performance. You're focusing inward. And if you put a camera on and you're doing these Zoom auditions, for example, sometimes you'll get a call back and you'll do a Zoom audition. I will make sure I shut off my camera for me, because otherwise I'm distracted by, oh my God, the way I look and sound. You can reach a certain level of performance by being ugly, to put it frankly. You
have to create a certain sound. You have to push your body and physicalize things.
And those are the voices I love to do when you look like a cartoon character.
That's awesome. And let's wrap up with Haley's circle back question about well, Haley, ask your question, and we'll make that the last question, and then we'll talk about how to stay in touch with everybody. And we'll also be hanging out. We'll also be hanging out in breakout rooms for a little bit afterwards. So we'll talk about that in a second. But Haley, bring it on home.
Hi, thank you. So I'm curious. I'm a commercial girl, and I'm starting to break into animation just a little bit. I've started to get more auditions and having a lot of fun with them. And I recently took an improv class, and I was like, I toyed with a few auditions, throwing in just a few little like ad libs, improvs here and there. And I was just curious if that's something that you do frequently or infrequently, and like how often do you like maybe throw in a little something here and not totally changing the script, but like, is that something you do, or do you typically stick to what's written in your auditions specifically?
Sometimes they will specify that on the breakdown. They'll say we're looking for improv comedians, and they may not even say we're looking for you to improvise. They might just say we're looking for improv comedians, and that's a little hint to add some improvisation in there. Usually when it's an animation project for a certain company, for example, Nickelodeon, I'll go, okay, I know they like to have some wacky nuances and that sort of thing, so I'll add some things. But usually I'll throw it on the second take. First take, stick to the script, because you want to honor the writers. You don't want to show that you're uncontrollable. You send in an audition where you're improvising all these wonderful, funny lines that might be hilarious, but they go, why is this person so distracted? Focus on the script, you know? So you don't want to go overboard, of course. With commercials, I'm sure you're accustomed to, you know, casting directors and that sort of things on the breakdown will say, you know, feel free to improvise on your second take. It's pretty typical for animation too. I will send that on the second take and that sort of thing. But really, in the end, it is about your performance. If it's a comedy-focused animation, then I would feel free to improvise more. If it's a dramatic read, there's a lot of things now that are dramatic adult animations. You don't necessarily need to improvise and that sort of thing. What you can do when you feel that there's a script that could use a little bit more, but you can always do this in any of your performances, is add nuances in your vocal quality, in your human sounds. You don't have to say any words. So before delivering the line, oh, it's hard to work, you can say, oh, it's hard to work. So just adding that preamble, you know, the pre-life, as they say, before the line. You can improvise things like that, just to show that there's more texture and three-dimensional aspects to your performance. But yeah, you don't want to overdo improv unless they specifically ask for it. So first take, I usually honor the script. Second take, I can add some improv if I feel.
Yeah, and I think what you're also talking about, Piotr, is how with every audition are you recognizing that we are stepping into the collaboration. So we honor the writer, we honor the director or the creators, like, and we go and we can play. So finding that balance of recognizing the collaboration.
Yes, and I would say you can improv more on a callback. If you get the callback audition where you're working with the producer, just ask them. Just, you know, don't surprise them. You say, do you mind if I improv a little bit on some of these lines? And they may flat out say no. And then you say, okay, I have my answer. But if they say, oh yes, of course, you're here. We spent all this money to set aside 5 minutes from our lunch to hear your callback. Please, we want to hear how funny you can be. So, yeah, you know, it's just communication. And like anything, the people you're working with, they're just like you. They're desperate, they're angry, they're hungry, they're happy, they're starving, they're sad, they're depressed, they're excited. They're just human beings. So treat them as such and you won't have a problem.
Yeah, we summarize that at the dojo. There is no they, there's only we, and then we take it from there. So yeah. And speaking of which, we are at the top of the hour. So thank you all for great questions and for being here. if you are interested in anything we're doing at the dojo, www.thevodojo.com. We have great things happening over the summer, fight clubs. You should do voiceover. If you missed our Go Guide, and last month was all about international voiceover, check out the website. If you're interested in a voiceover once-over call, free 15 minutes checking in where you're at and where you'd like to be. info@thevodojo.com will get you in touch with Diana. And Dan, how can people keep in touch with you?
I can unmute myself. Easiest way to get a hold of me is go to homevoiceoverstudio.com. There it is, right there. You know, you can submit an audio file, an MP3 of your raw audio, and for $25, I will give you a thorough analysis of what your audio sounds like and give you some suggestions as to what you can do to try and get it sounding the way it is. It usually takes me about 5 to 10 seconds to hear exactly what's going on in your room and how you're using your microphone and how your levels are set and all those things. So, you know, that's what I teach. So homevoiceoverstudio.com and watch Voiceover Body Shop on Facebook.
Yeah, that is amazing resource that has all sorts of tech talk and great interviews with Dan and George Wyndham. So yeah. And Piotr, I think you said your website is the best way to.
Yeah, I've got all social media handles and things like that, and you can email me directly through my website, which is my first name, piotrmichael.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here, everyone. Next month, our Ask the Sensei guest is Crispin Gilbert, who you might know as the lead in the latest Call of Duty game. So we'll be talking about that. We'll have a first person with first person sort of perspective. And Joshua, do you want to tell people about how it could work if we hang out in breakout rooms, if anyone wants to talk about, we often, oh, actually, let's finish up with this too. We finish up with Dojo O's whenever we get together at the dojo. So if there's one thing that made you go, oh, today, put it in the chat, distill it into its most concise form and put it in the chat. We'd love to see what resonated, what your takeaway is for today. And if you want to talk more about that, Joshua, let us know how we can hang out in the breakout rooms.
Sure. So folks, we're going to go into breakout rooms in just a matter of moments. And if you'd like to talk about what stood out for you today, what you learned, again, your Dojo O by all means, but also you could go a little bit deeper and talk about what's the challenge you're dealing with in your voiceover journey right now, and what kind of support are you looking for? Because we're all about community here at the VO Dojo, and you'll see in some of the breakout rooms there may be someone from the VO Dojo there, but we're all about peer-to-peer support in that respect too, so we can just work with one another to move through these challenges together.
Yeah, excellent. So if you got a role, we'll see you next month or on something else. Piotr, thank you so much for being here. Dan,
my pleasure. Thanks for all your questions, guys.
Always a pleasure.
And if you want to